Thank you, Sandora, and everybody at EBSA for having me. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to kind of pass it down. I'm not expert on any of the things I'm going to say, but it's definitely things that I've learned throughout my journey, throughout my experiences. And I was in your shoes just a couple of years ago. So hopefully I can help out anyone. I'm always here throughout LinkedIn or anything like that. So feel free to reach out to me over Facebook Messenger. And I hope I can help you out throughout this presentation. All right. So here we go. Start out with 2 truths and a lie. So these are kind of the 2 truths and a lie. You could kind of think about one. Maybe if we could have like a couple volunteers, you can go ahead and just like unmute yourself and guess, and then we can go on give up the answer.
This one's a hard one.
Thanks, Stacey.
You can also type your guess in the chat if you don't want to speak up.
Yeah, or that. Does anyone want to volunteer? Okay. So I see some, kind of everyone's guessing a few. All right. Okay, so the one lie is that I ran the San Francisco half marathon. I don't run. I don't do much cardio. The 2 truths are I race cars on the weekend, and I lived in Hong Kong for a short period, and that was for 4 months when I studied abroad there in 2017 of fall semester. So kind of a shameless plug to proof if you need proof. So this is my car. I kind of built it throughout college and when I got a job, built it all myself, and as well as I raced it on the weekends as well. And if you're into cars, there's the IG if you want to follow that. And then the second truth was that I did, like I said, in 2017, studied abroad at HKU, which is the University of Hong Kong. Met a lot of great people, made friends from all over the world, and I still keep in contact with them as well. If you still have the chance to study abroad at Davis, highly suggest it. Like I said, it was just one of the greatest experiences that I've had. I was a transfer student that I'll go over as well. So I was only there for, I was at Davis for 2 years, and this took a quarter of it, but it was well worth it. So kind of the agenda that I'm going on for today, I definitely had a peculiar or unique journey throughout college and my career to where I am today. That's kind of how I'll go. And that's the first segment I'll go over on, how I got here today. The second one is going to be what I'm doing today, a recruiting coordinator at Facebook. I think a lot of people, when they hear about recruiting, they think about people sliding into their LinkedIn DMs and trying to get their job, trying to get them a job. But I think recruiting goes a lot more deeper than that. And I think you only can learn that if you have kind of internal insights or you actually work in a position where you're a recruiter or in the recruiting department. As well as building relationships, right? I think a lot of people have goals, and if you're a little bit on a younger grade in college, you're only thinking about getting good grades, and kind of setting yourself up for a good career and landing those internships. And then if you're a little bit older and you're a senior, you're kind of trying to land that next job or land that dream job or whatever it may be. But after a year and a half of experience after college, I want you to think even further, a step further or 2 steps further that usual college students are not thinking about, is that when you land that job, what are the next steps? You congratulate yourself, pat yourself on the back, but what are you going to do to get to that next job, next level, that promotion, or where you want to be in that 5 to 10 year plan or whatever that may be. And as well as we're all living in a situation where it sucks, right? But we have our health and we have our friends and family, and never take that for granted. But we have all this time, and time is money. And you'll definitely learn that when you have your career. Every minute counts, every cent counts. So you have so much time right now. Take that into account, build your skill sets. And I'll tell you what I think you should be learning on, professional and personally, and whatever it may be to, make you happy and kind of keep your self-sanity as well, as we're locked indoors. And then the last section is just going to be a Q&A. I don't think I know everything. I want to learn from you. Don't think you only have to ask questions. Give me comments, give me feedback, anything you want. I would love to learn from you and hear from you as well, Dan, okay? Let me get some water. All right, y'all with me still? Y'all good. It's weird talking, and there's like no reaction or just like it's like dead silence. And I'm talking to my computer. Okay, so from an academic and professional journey, straight out of high school, I went to San Francisco State University, and I really just didn't immerse myself in the culture, didn't take any risk, didn't put myself in any uncomfortable positions, didn't join anything. I really just went to school, commuted, took class, and commuted back home. And the reason why I felt so safe, I believe, is that when I was, freshman and sophomore in college, I still had friends that were around to hang out with because of community college, and everybody was still there. So once I hit that 2-year mark and everybody started transferring to these great schools and all these UCs, and everybody started living and moving away and living away from their parents and living away from Millbrae, my hometown, it kind of just gave me kind of like a push I needed, I think, to get myself out of my comfort zone and into a new environment where I could really thrive. So, I took a risk, and, thankful for my parents that helped me out. I actually dropped out of SF State and I went back to community college. In SF State, I was actually a marine biology major. So I dropped out, changed my major. People stress about changing their majors. I mean, I dropped out and changed my major. So I did the double whammy, and I went back to community college. But it was a risk I was willing to take because I saw what was possible and I believed in myself, and luckily I had people to believe in me. So I went to Skyline College, if you guys know where that is, in about like San Bruno Pacifica area in the Bay Area. So I went there for about a year and a half, and luckily got into UC Davis. And kind of where I got to UC Davis is that I met so many great people, joined EBSA, got to study abroad, really put myself in uncomfortable situations. And that's what you need to do to really help yourself grow, whether you do fail, and you're probably going to fail most of the time, but you're really not going to see those successes without those failures or without those uncomfortable positions where you walk away kind of kicking yourself in the butt, because you're really never going to know how how true success feels if you're never really going to fail. But yeah, so once I got to UC Davis, it gave me the opportunity to study abroad, like I said, as well as do an internship with Marketing Evolution in New York during my summer, right before I left for Hong Kong. And that was connection through EBSA. So that would have been possible without connections at EBSA as well. After I graduated from UC Davis, I graduated with an economics degree. I struggled to find a job. 3 months out, still didn't have a job, but I did a ton of screens, a ton of on-sites, and I just couldn't land it. And I think looking back on it, the one mistake I kind of had was just one, I was naive and inexperienced, and it kind of took the mentality of I kind of knew everything in a sense. Whereas, I think I did bad and didn't do too well in the interview, but maybe I could have just done this and done that, and I would have got an offer, et cetera, et cetera. Always trying to, be optimistic. But I think at a time I learned that you really just need to prepare for an interview, no matter how good you think you are, no matter what. You have to prepare for the interview and treat it like it's the only interview you have, on the table, even if you have a few. But nevertheless, I did land a job at Bank of America. I always liked, if you guys ever took the STIMO class, I think it was Money in Banking. So I really liked that class and kind of just steered towards banking a little bit and finance. And the main thing I wanted to do was become a financial advisor at Merrill Lynch. And if you didn't know, Bank of America and Merrill Lynch are partner companies. So kind of I was a relationship manager at Bank of America, and that program allowed you, if you did well, you could actually be a financial advisor for Merrill Lynch after about a year to a year and a half after you take your Series 67. After about a year at Bank of America, I absolutely hated it. The culture wasn't for me. The products that they were selling wasn't for me. I wasn't proud to walk into that, that office and carry my daily duties, if you will. So I ended up in another situation where I was going to enter an uncomfortable situation, didn't know what lied ahead of me, and ended up started to apply for new jobs. And that's kind of how I started applying to LinkedIn and Facebook. I actually got offers from LinkedIn and Facebook. And when I got offers from LinkedIn and Facebook, I ended up choosing Facebook as a recruiting coordinator. And this picture was my first day at Facebook. This was on the Menlo Park campus, or the main campus. Now this is only buildings 10 through 19. We have about 45 buildings on the Menlo Park campus alone. There's Uncle Zuck, that's what they call him once you start working there. And then this food right here is just one of the many plates that I have. If you follow me on Instagram, I've been posting a lot of food when I did work there. This is from the barbecue restaurant that we have on site. We have about 25 different restaurants specific to whether it may be like Vietnamese, barbecue, burgers, pizza, and then Mediterranean food. There's grilled cheese on a rooftop garden. It gets ridiculous. So yeah, and then that's where I'm here today as a recruiting coordinator. So if you want to, let's see, no one really spoke about the two truths and a lie, but does anyone want to kind of take a stab at what do you think I do as a recruiting coordinator, or want to type it in the chat?
I'll take a guess. Maybe that there's some direct things you obviously do, but maybe something you might be involved in is kind of monitoring where like other companies, or like monitoring data and like other companies kind of results of where they're getting the best kind of like response, like on websites or like different social media platforms, to see where like you get the best response rates and stuff, to kind of target where you're looking for people.
Yeah, so it's something like that, but in the recruiting, it's kind of everything's a little bit broken up, and kind of at the the front line, it's going to be myself as a recruiting coordinator, and as well as so as a recruiting coordinator on the front line, as well as, so we call them sourcers and recruiters without the coordinating part. So those are the people that actually we have at our internal site at Facebook where we have potential candidates for what we're looking for. So the recruiters and the sourcers are the type of people that kind of like hit you up on LinkedIn or whatever it may be on those kind of platforms to reach out. As a recruiting coordinator, I serve as a liaison between those sourcers and recruiters, hiring managers, interviewers, and I'm kind of like the glue to that bridge in that relationship. And when those sourcers and recruiters bring over the candidates, I am the person who schedules their interviews, whether it be screens, cell chats, opportunity chats, as well as full on-sites. So my team specifically does machine learning software engineers. So what I do as that, and to give you a sense of volume, that Facebook scheduled almost 400,000 interviews in 2020 in the first quarter, right? And then, like I said, as a machine learning, what we do is specifically the candidates I look for. They could be machine learning or AI for marketplace, portal, Instagram, ads searching, ads ranking. So the software engineers that I work with are typically the ones, I'm sure that everybody has like a lot of people have Instagram or Facebook. When you start talking about something or search something on Google and you start seeing the ads pop up, those are the type of projects that my engineers are working on. So that's kind of what I do. Also do travel expenses and travel logistics for the candidates. And as well as what a big thing when I made my decision choosing between LinkedIn and Facebook was I had internal connections in it, and I talked to them. And the one thing that I heard, and the biggest thing with me, is that aside from the core role, Facebook gives the recruiting coords a lot more freedom and a lot more side projects and initiatives that I could kind of take on and prove myself and learn and put myself in new opportunities. For an example, the new task I just took on and I completed and sent up to one of the software engineer directors was the 2020 quarter one data report for how efficient the interviewers were. And in this report, it was purely Excel, all data, and looking at what kind of efficiencies, where we can improve, where we did well, and what we can look forward to for Q1 and Q3 and moving forward with 2020. So talk about reschedule times. How far does that push out? If the candidate rescheduled a screen, how far is that pushing us out? Is that pushing out 7 days, 8 days, whatever average on that may be? because you got to look at the ripple effect of, yes, the screen gets pushed back, but also as well as the screen, the on-site will get pushed back, and then the offer, if the candidate does get an offer, then that gets pushed back. And that's everyone's goal, whether you be a recruiter, you be a cord. I mean, that's our job and that's our goal, is getting pushed back. So that's what we don't want on our end, as well as data looking at interviewer usage, because you don't want to burn them out as well. And feedback response, whether when interviewers do the on-site interviews, they have to write extensive feedback, especially for these software engineers that are going to be, when they get offered, they're getting offered a minimum of $300,000 as software engineers. So these detailed feedback is very crucial, that we're bringing on the best possible people to make the best possible impact at a company like Facebook and the products that we do and the billions of lives and traffic we get on a daily basis. And overall, kind of what sums that up is that what it comes down to is just providing that best possible candidate experience, because our competitors are Google, Amazon, and a majority of the time, these people that are interviewing with us, they're interviewing with all the competitors at the same time. So I'll go back actually. So that's actually what I do. You can save your questions for the end as well, but I'm going to move on to a new topic. So if you want to, since we're on here, if anyone wants to ask me direct questions about Facebook while we're on the hot topic, or recruiting, or being a recruiting coordinator, now would be a good time, or you can hold it to the end.
Hey, Gabe, I have a question.
Yeah.
Well, first off, congratulations on landing a position at Facebook. One question I did have when it comes to recruitment at Facebook, do you see moving forward after Q1, Q2, Q3 onwards, do you think there's going to be a possibility of a, hiring freeze due to the whole COVID situation, or do you don't really see much of a slowdown when it comes to recruitment for your team, or I guess for recruiting in general?
Yeah. Yeah, good question. So I think that it was March, if I believe it was like March 23 or something like that, was the first day that we actually started really pivoting, and we stopped all interviews on sites, but we never stopped interviewing in general. So we made that pivot to VC when that official announcement of work from home started. All the directors and the executives kind of got together and they had an emergency meeting, and we turned that right around. And that kind of hurdle, or that bottleneck that we ran into, was the initial week when we had procedures and policies changing every single day, because these were things that really literally within 24 hours, we switched from everything on site, everything to VC. And then the next day, something went wrong here. Feedback was submitted. We changed it that night on Monday night. Then we submitted new policies on Tuesday. And that kind of change just kept going. So that was the first hurdle that we got over. And now we're kind of plateauing, so to say, that we got our policies, we know what's working, we're getting our feedback. And I think the next challenge is going to be when we do start pivoting back to normal. And everything starts going to come in sight. We're going to start bringing candidates from travel, from other countries, whatever it may be. And I think that is the next thing that we're looking at. But the one thing that we can't jump into answers for that, or jump into solutions, is that we don't have enough data to rely on, because we've only been doing this procedure for about 2 weeks. And that's actually something that I've talked to about one of the higher up managers that I had office hours with, is that there's just not enough data to make any kind of concrete solution or answers. Right now, we're kind of just honestly seeing how it goes, because it's just such a small data sample right now.
Okay, so does it feel like there's going to be it sounds to me that there's not going to be much of a pause in hiring and interviews. It seems like everything is going to be moving just towards virtual. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, sorry, yeah. We're not slowing down at all. To answer the question.
Awesome, thanks.
I had a question.
Are we good? Yeah, go ahead.
Did you find that anything you learned in Davis, like from your classes, did you think you gained any transferable skills that you used in like any of your jobs since graduating?
I think if I were to really take any class, it was going to be MGM MGM. What is management? MGMT?
Yeah, the management classes.
Management 120 is definitely the class. Just not necessarily directly what you're doing in that class, but kind of just the thought processes in that class and how you break down problems. It's just very real world applicable skills. Not necessarily those problems that you solve are real world, but the way that you can kind of break it down, especially like in interviews, just how you break it down, what your thought processes are. I think that class is the most relatable and what you can kind of bring into interviews in your career. Unless you go into unless you go work for like the Federal Reserve or something, then the econ classes will really help out or whatever you may do specifically for economics or manager economics.
Hey, Gabe, I had one more question.
Yeah.
So you talked about how being a coordinator is a liaison between potential recruits and the team that you're kind of hiring for. I'm curious about what that conversation is like with the team that you're hiring for, and like how they communicate their goals or kind of what they're looking for in terms of potential recruit. I don't know.
You're fine. So yeah, I think so. You're kind of asking like what is the team really looking for, and how do those conversations go, and what we're looking for in a candidate.
Mm-hmm. Or just like how they communicate to you. Yeah.
Yeah. So that actually goes through the recruiters. So the recruiters will actually talk to the candidate and ask them what they want to do in machine learning, whether there be the infrastructure machine learning or machine learning like research or like ranking. So like when you type into like a good example is just like Google. If you type into Google, like what's like the first thing gonna like pop up or whatever it may be, something like that. So if they have experience in that, then that's what we'll kind of like target towards. And then those hiring managers will actually tell recruiters saying like, this is what we need for this project. Someone that has expertise in machine learning infrastructure and design, right? Specifically for that. So that's how the conversation goes. Try to find a candidate that's really good for this because we need it for this project upcoming, or need to grow the team in that aspect. And then the recruiter will actually relay that information to me. And I have the database for all those interviewers at Menlo Park and Facebook. And I start contacting them saying, this is the candidate. Would you like to interview them? This is their database. Like, I think this is a good fit because you have the expertise in that machine learning infrastructure and design, and you'd be a really great interviewer for this candidate to really test if they would be, if their knowledge is sufficient enough to bring them onto the team or bring them to Facebook.
Thank you.
Yeah, does that answer the question? Is that good?
Yeah, thanks for clarifying.
Everyone good? Okay. So kind of like what I talked about in the agenda is building relationships and setting yourself up for the next goal, pivoting towards this direction. If you're lower, if you're a younger grade, you're kind of thinking about your internships. If you're in junior, senior, kind of thinking about landing the internship. And if you're a senior, for sure, you're thinking about landing that, especially in spring quarter, landing that full-time job. So you're going to get there, right? You went to a great school, you have great connections, you have a great network, you'll get that first job. But what do you start doing when you get that first job? Instead of taking all the opportunities, and I think when you're in a new environment, it's like I said, the experience I learned from not doing anything at SF State is kind of what I kind of always kind of carry to remind myself to always put myself out there. It's always so easy to just say, no, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll do it next week, or whatever that may be. That time's going to pass, and once those opportunities pass, they're really hard to get back. Speaking of those opportunities, for example, like I don't know if any other companies do this, but they do this at Facebook, where like managers will have office hours, and you'll never get to, yes, you'll send them emails, but those emails are also going to maybe like 20, 30 people. So they'll know your name, but they'll never know like kind of who you are or put a name to a face. So take advantage of those office hours, or take advantage of any kind of networking event within that job, because it's really easy to get comfortable. Yeah, I have the job. Why do I have to go to another networking within that job, right? So it's really easy to pass those up and don't. For example, I had office hours for my manager, or one of the Hyatt managers in my department, and honestly, I saw it at like 8 p.m. because I don't know why I picked up. It was just like chance. I picked up my work phone. I usually don't at 8 p.m. and kind of just scrolled through our internal workplace Facebook, and saw that this manager, I've seen her name before because I know she's pretty high up. She's going to be holding office hours the next day. And I think everyone's human. I think everyone kind of like wants to have fun first initially, right? And it was just kind of an awkward situation where I forced myself, like, just do it. And kind of that voice is always going to be in the back, chirping back. You don't have to do it. Just, you could wake up tomorrow morning and don't really have to do anything. But instead I took it upon myself to prep that night for the chat conversation, prep that morning for the conversation, and then had a 30-minute chat with a high-up manager. So situations like that where the opportunity can just pass you, but really take advantage of that. And I really think that what I do is also I take notes every single day on what I do for my job. I kind of go over this later as well, but I do that every day for my job, because when I want to interview for a higher up position, or I want to move horizontally, or if I want to move for another company, I can look back at all those experiences every single day I did at Facebook. And when I start interview prepping, I could pick and choose what experiences I want to use and what would directly relate to whatever new position I want to apply for. And kind of those are kind of a couple steps that I take to kind of plan for my next goal. Because I know after a year and a half, I'm going to be applying for probably a higher up position. Because I am a contract at Facebook. So about a year to a year and a half, I'm going to have to interview again to become full-time or move horizontally to another team, or to become a recruiter or anything of that nature. And as well as I actually, when I moved on, kind of just like a side note, I had another teammate that switched teams. So she got an offer, but instead of staying on the same team, she wanted to, she kind of knew everything. She was an expert on the machine learning recruiting side, but she wanted to go to a completely another team just to like make more network, have new experiences. Kind of that was an example I wanted to touch on. Right. And then as well as moving on to pivoting to kind of the subject of quarantine, I think everybody has a good amount of time on their hands, right now. If everybody want to work like in the tech world or just in general, we use tech all the time. Try to take up coding if you never did. I tried it as well as in Davis. I did ECS 10 and ECS 20. And that's why I decided to stop. But if you've never tried it, go ahead and try. It's definitely worth it, and it's pretty cool to kind of get the mindset of a coder. They're very, what's the word? They're very logical thinking, where they go from A, B, C, D, where sometimes as business, we're like, I'm going to go to Z because I think this is $1 million idea. And I think that's it's really cool to see how they think, because when you start coding, if you start doing that kind of logical problems they start doing in early coding, it really helps you take a step back, take a problem step by step, and it may help you in kind of technical interviews.
Did he cut out?
I think he might have accidentally or somehow left the call.
Zoom strikes again.
Yeah.
Yeah, just see if you can join back.
You are good at Excel and you kind of tackle jobs with Excel, it's literally as good as coding. And I guarantee you, your salaries will probably range from $10,000 to $15,000 more if you're proficient in Excel. And Stacy could definitely vouch for that, because she does a lot of Excel in her job. Well, and also speaking like of languages and coding languages, I mean, learning a different language, that also helps too. And I think it really helps to be culturally just diverse, and makes you look smarter as well if you want to go on Hinge or Zoom or something with a different language. Let's see. So kind of what I want to go to, especially since you're quarantined, and I think a lot of people are by themselves. And if you're living with your parents, or if you have siblings, use your parents or your siblings to practice interviewing. And I think interviewing is a skill that's kind of underrated, in the sense that you don't even have a class for it. You kind of have to take it upon yourself to do your research and do your due diligence to practice. When I interviewed for Facebook, I probably practiced with my friend in the mirror and with my girlfriend for about 2 weeks straight, just going over questions, saying examples that came to my mind, kind of freelancing it, scrapping those examples because I didn't like it, and then inputting new examples, thinking at night, thinking during the day, writing down examples, et cetera, et cetera. to think that what's the best thing to kind of get my point across. Because when you get asked a question, you can't lay down 4 different examples, right? You have one chance, and you have one chance kind of only to tell the interviewer, this is my, whatever STAR method you do, this is what I did, this was how I did it, and this was the outcome. That's your one example. That's what they're going to remember you on. So if you don't take the due diligence to kind of really think that through, how that's going to be most relatable, that could be what really makes it or breaks if you get an offer or not. So I think that's really a great skill to practice. Like I talked about before, a great thing is that to take notes every day, whether that be at school, group project, EBSA, during your internships, if you have any. Take a note every single day on what you're doing, what challenges you face, whatever it may be. It could be the smallest win. It could be a win like learning how to push back in the sense that if, you have, for example, we have an alignment, what we call an alignment, and I have about 5 sourcers and 1 recruiter in my alignment, and they're the ones sending me all the candidates, kind of do my job. And learning how to, if they're asking you so many different things, you have to learn how to push back. You have to learn how to time manage. If it's too much, be honest, right? Because any work that you put out, that's going to be your name on it. And if your work is being half-assed or, not to the full potential because you're being overloaded, that's a skill to have. And I think that's a small win you could put in your notes. Maybe you won't say that in an interview, but it's something that you could kind of rely back on when you look at back your past experiences, and kind of learn from it and gain from it and become the better version. So one interview tip that I love to give out, and kind of this is what when I was interviewing for Facebook, when I talked to one of my connections in Facebook, he's been there for 5 years and he's pretty high up in the department. He told me that he gave me one of the greatest answers to one of the most simplest questions I think I even struggled with, is that you always get this asked question, whether it be in different variations or whatever it may be, why Facebook, or why LinkedIn, or why Deloitte, or why Amazon? Does anyone want to try to take a stab at answering such a simple question, but a question you'll always face in every single interview? No? It's okay. I'd be nervous too. Kind of how I was advised to take on this question was to break it into 3 parts. And I think a lot of people hit 1 or 2 parts of this question, and that's kind of what makes, this average question, because you have to think about when these interviewers interview you, these interviewers have probably interviewed over 100 people in their careers. They're very tenured, and they've heard pretty much almost every answer in the book. So these 3 points is that you show that you know the core values and the mission statement of that company. 1, I think a lot of people are going to hit that. It's a pretty basic one. Number 2, relate how those core values or how that product or how that platform relates to you personally and how it impacted your life and why you think it's important. And then number 3 is, how does that platform, or what are your experiences, and what are your skills that you're bringing to the table, and how can you contribute that to the company running? And have you learned anything already or researched anything already that you're going to hit the ground running right when you get hired? And what's your 3 to 5 year plan when you get hired? Just kind of relaying back to what I talked to before about, you got the job, what's your next plan? So if you hit all those 3 steps of knowing the core value, knowing the mission statement, and relating those mission statements to your personal life or your professional life, and then kind of number 2 is that how does that platform, or how does their product, or how does this company affect you personally, and how have you used it, whatever it may be in your personal life? And then 3 is kind of, what have you done in your career, or what are you contributing, or what are you ready to bring to the table now and 3 to 5 years into that future? Kind of hitting those 3 points will really make you stand out, and you're hitting professional and you're hitting personal notes in that answer, where it really makes it personable, really makes you more memorable. I think honestly, like I said, if you guys have more comments, I would love to learn it. But when my friend told me that really, I've kind of never heard that type of question broken down before like that. And it gave me a lot more confidence when I was practicing. And when I got asked that question, I was like pretty excited to kind of go about it. And it's something that, I wasn't lying. I wasn't BSing. It was honestly coming, straight from my heart. And if they don't ask that question, you really prep for it. It's something you want to put out there, right? Because there's a reason why you're in that position of interviewing them and you're in front of that interviewer in the first place. So drive that conversation, steer that conversation towards that what you want to say. I kind of did that towards LinkedIn because they never really asked this specific question of like why LinkedIn, but they were asking about what was the question they're asking about? They're asking about why, what do I see myself doing in the next 3 to 5 years? And I just took that question, and I already knew that my answer of why LinkedIn was going to be at 3 to 5 years was going to be at the end. But I kind of just wrapped it around and steered the conversation and said my entire kind of spiel with them just asking that question. So yeah, take over. Interview is a conversation, right? Don't ever feel that if you're just getting bounced off Q&A, it should never feel like that. A good interview is always going to be a solid conversation with that interviewer. They're humans too, right?
Gabe, I have a question.
Yeah.
Are you supposed to be sharing screen right now?
Oh, did I not? Thanks. Damn, no one else told me the whole time I was talking?
Chance commented it earlier, but I don't think.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm like too busy.
Chat.
I'm too busy talking. I can't look at the chat.
Yeah.
Sorry. I mean, well, you guys saw it. It's the same thing. Yeah. Did you guys hear what I said? I wasn't on mute, was I?
No, we heard everything
Okay.
clearly. It was good.
Okay, so that's what the slide I was on. This is the slide, and this is pretty much the slide I was on, just talking about specifically on how I approached the interview and that question. And yeah, I mean, other than that's pretty much it. I think it comes down to whatever you guys want to talk about, because I think we only have about 15 minutes left. So we can leave that for kind of Q&A or comments.
I have a question.
What's up?
What was the structure of your interview process? Like, how many rounds were they, and like, what were each of the interviews like pretty different from each other?
Yeah. So I mean, so we could go off the two latest ones. Was LinkedIn. So I'll start off with LinkedIn. So LinkedIn was I actually had a vacation in Spain last December in 2019, and that's where I took my first screen. I took a Zoom screen with LinkedIn at Spain. And when I got the offer to come on site, then I did 2 45-minute interviews with, two recruiting managers at LinkedIn. So it's 245. One of them actually went to Davis, so kind of leverage that. When I talked to her, they were really awesome. Then got an offer from LinkedIn, and then as well as Facebook. So Facebook was a really, really unique interview experience, and I guess someone would kind of think of it as intimidating. So it was a normal screen, 30-minute screen. And the Facebook screen, 30 minutes, they had no time to like say hello, who are you? She didn't even ask. She was nice, but they just wanted to hear like, they just wanted to ask questions right off the bat. I didn't even get a spiel about, I graduated from UC Davis, I studied blah, blah, blah. It was just, hey, we're going to get started. This is going to be your questions. And then it was some behavioral and some technical. Technical for recruiters is kind of just like, in this situation, what would you do? For example, if you had, because what we have to do as a recruiter as well, as a recruiting coordinator, we have to put out fires. So when you have a fire, you have, so like we have full loop scheduled in our full loop interviews. It's a 6-hour interview, and there's 5 different interviews. So sometimes those interviews call in sick last minute, and whether they might be sick or they're late or whatever it may be. And finding a room and interview is actually like interviewer is pretty hard because of how high volume we do. So those are the type of technical questions I'll ask for in my end. So they asked those questions, and then I made it to onsite. And the weirdest thing about the unique part about the Facebook onsite was that it was what they call a batch interview. So it was essentially speed dating. So I walked in, I had no idea. They didn't even tell us that. They just said it was going to be a normal interview. Then you walk into a room, and it was a room with like 25 desks, and you just sat at a desk. They're like, hey, you're green. And I was okay. And I sat at a green desk. and I had to go down the desk every time they were like, the time's up, and you had to go next to the next desk next to you, and that was the next interviewer. So when you were talking, you could hear other people talking right behind you, left, right, in front of you, and you had to kind of like try to talk over them, and then you'd switch. So that was the experience with Facebook, but that was a unique experience. Of that does happen to you if you hear you're in a batch day. That's what's gonna happen.
That's so nerve-wracking.
It's funny that they didn't tell us too. They're just like, when we got there, there's like a few people waiting in the lobby, and they let us in. And then when they let us in, they're like, "Oh, here's the room," and there's just like 25 people standing outside the room. And then they're just like, "All right, go in," and then the interview started.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi Gabe. What is your 3 to 5 year plan?
Shoot, I mean, let's be realistically, I don't even know. But
You're right.
no, I mean, honestly, like I no, my 35-year plan is kind of, I really love the company of Facebook. I really believe in the platform, and I really use it honestly in a personal level. Like I said, I love cars. I love building cars. I'm on Facebook groups every single day, and I never met these people from all around the world. And we talk about cars. We help each other out. We buy and sell parts. I've even started like my own small business, selling car parts. And I sell them on Instagram and Facebook and eBay too. But so I really believe in that platform. I kind of believe in the mission of Facebook. So my 35-year plan is really trying to stay here and moving up in kind of the recruiting world. I've actually have a friend in finance as well, and I've talked to him and see what he's done, seeing if there's anything I could do laterally. So I'm keeping my options open. But if I had to look at anything kind of in a straight head vision, if you so to say, I want to stick in recruiting at Facebook and kind of be in a manager role or be in talent camp, what they call, because I really enjoy kind of doing things like this, presenting and teaching and kind of passing on knowledge and doing trainings with, kind of newbies. That's really what I enjoy. So I think that's kind of my 30-year plan if I could get there on that end of Facebook.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you're amazing at this, so you'll be awesome.
Thanks. I'd like to think so, but.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about how like switching from like B of A to Facebook, how that recruiting process or just like job hunting process was different for you, even if it was just like what you were looking for in like a position? And then this is like a second question, it's not really related, but if you could talk about the importance of like continued mentorship in roles, like once you have a career.
So what was the second question? What about mentorship?
Like the importance of having like a mentor, or like how did
okay.
you navigate like finding like a good mentor?
Okay. Yeah. So kind of the trade. I think the reason why I talked about how much I prepped for the interview at Facebook is the reason why is just because I was switching industries, right? I didn't know anything about recruiting, and I knew that people that are going to be interviewing are coming straight from like Google and Amazon recruiting backgrounds or whatever it may be, and I'm coming from a bank, right? But I did have kind of the knowledge that they were actually looking for like a little bit of like non-recruiters because they wanted a fresh look or a fresh set of eyes as something that, someone that's kind of new to the industry. But really it really wasn't hard to switch, so to say. I think naturally recruiting skills, I think my skills kind of come naturally to recruiting. So I think it may be different for some other people. So I think it really came naturally to me because I really love just building relationships and really getting to know people and kind of leveraging my teammates, and kind of that's all what's recruiting about. And as far as important as mentorship, I think it's kind of what it comes down to is not even mentorship. It's kind of just being like friendships and having that network. But when you think about network, it's kind of like it gets large, especially with these platforms of social media and LinkedIn these days. You could say you're in my network, but I don't even know you, right? And I'm sure everybody gets pinged on LinkedIn all the time about saying you're in my network, let's chat. But really kind of having that close network and having that mentor or having that friendship, they don't even have to necessarily be a mentor, right? They could be, I don't want to say below you, but like they could have less experience than you, the same experience as you, or someone that has more experience than you. I think it's a mentor is someone or a friend that's really going to always just keep pushing you to that next level, whatever it may be, no matter how satisfied you are at your job, or how happy you are, or if you want to make that career change because it's always been your dream to, whatever you want to do, be a YouTuber and leave this career. It's someone that will like back you up but show you the right way to go about it. I think that's the important way about having a mentor, having a friend in those situations, career-wise.
Gabe, I have a question.
What's up?
I just want to ask, a lot of us are like econ majors and don't have a ton of technical skills. So aside from picking up coding and learning that, like you mentioned, what are some other tips and tricks for like non-STEM people to kind of get into the world of the tech industry like you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you don't want to learn any like technical skills, I mean, honestly, the biggest thing is going to be Excel. I mean, essentially economics, like we call ourselves business majors essentially, right? Excel is the coding language of the business world. If you want to get into anything, throw Excel in there, because any tech industry or any accounting firm or any consulting firm, especially tech industry, you're always going to have they rely humongously on data. And whenever data comes into play, Excel is going to come into play, and how you analyze it, how you break up into it. So that would be the number one skill that I would say. Because then if you want, in the tech world, you could be honestly anything other than a software engineer, because these tech companies need everything other than a software engineer as well, because yes, their main product is tech, so they need a lot of software engineers. That is the majority. But to run a business, you need everything else as well. Right? There's architects, there's floor planners, there's recruiting, there's finance, there's pretty much anything you could think of. So really, I don't think I want to think of the question of like, what should I learn? But it's more of a thing of like, what you want to do, and what do you think you'd be happy with? And I think you kind of go in that direction, because honestly, like these tech giants, they have everything. My cousin majors in architecture, and he's looking at positions of floor planning. Like Facebook is opening up the Oculus office in Burlingame right now, right near overlooking SFO. And they're looking for architects and floor planners to see how people are going to sit and maximize, the ergonomics or whatever it may be on that floor plan. So really just, do what you want to do what you love. But if you had to get an answer, Excel.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Can I ask a related, it's not super on topic, but it's real, like, I'm just curious if you know actually what languages software engineers and Facebook use for machine learning. Is it Python, or do they use like proprietary software? Do you even know? Like, it's not a big deal, but
Yeah. Actually, to my knowledge, they use whatever they're most comfortable with, to be honest. And
okay, they're not all using the same thing necessarily.
I'm sure they're excuse me, I'm sure they are kind of like uniformed in some way in specific teams. But like when you interview for machine learning, they allow you to use any language you want
in the technical interview.
Yeah, so you can use anything you want. I know the language I see a lot is C++. But it really depends, because I think everybody uses different languages on whatever it may be, because it could be machine learning for ad rankings, and then they could use Python if it's rankings or search, because I know that's like popular. Or if they're doing like infrastructure, it could be like C++. Yeah. So It really depends on what the specific product is, because for machine learning, that's just like one broad, like that's the umbrella. And then it kind of just trickles down into everything, like whatever, like I said, ads, rankings, searching. So yeah.
That's really cool. Thank you.
Hey, Gabe, I had a quick question about just kind of machine learning software engineer position. Obviously, that's a very highly technical position for Facebook. And I was kind of wondering, you mentioned 300K as kind of the salary. I was wondering if that's just base salary, or is that total compensation with stock options, and kind of who plays a role in figuring out that number of what I'm going to be, offering this candidate.
Yeah. So if you looked on like Glassdoor or anything like that, in the tech world, machine learning engineers baseline anywhere you go is going to be $250,000 to $300,000, and that's going to be your base salary. Facebook usually, if you're a full-time employee, will give you an option of $20,000 of stock. But that's kind of like that's the monetary version of it. But yeah, the 250 to 3 is just straight baseline, and that's the lowest level of software engineers. So we target, we call it E4. So we target E4 to E5 to E6. E6 being like a manager role, E5 being like right below a manager role or like a lead of a team. And then E4 would just be like a part of that team, a software engineer. So that's 250 to 3 that's the E4. And then it goes up even more, E5 and then E6. And how we break that, and that's why we call it debrief when we talk about the candidates, if we're going to extend them an offer, if we're not going to extend them an offer. And also comes down to if they're considered an E6 and they're in a manager role at like Amazon and they're making that type of money, and if the only way they will come over to Facebook is if they want that same title. They want the same title, they want the same money. But if they're, I've sat in debriefs where they're making that much money, they have that title, and their interview did not go very well, and at least the Facebook standards, and they want to like downgrade them all the way down to like an E4. They literally tell them saying like, if we won't hire you as an E6 and give you X amount of salary, but we'll hire you at an E4 if you want it. So that's kind of how that gets broken down.
And who decides that? Kind of the hiring manager, the finance team, or?
So during debrief, so the salary is kind of set by like the market, right? So be competitive. So that's that. And then so who decides that who we're going to hire is that we actually have we call them a quorum. So we have every week we have a different quorum. We have 4 different quorums for the machine learning team during debriefs. And during debriefs, we look at what we call packets, and those packets are going to be for a candidate. And packet is going to be like 6, we'll call it like packet and like 6 pages within it, and that's going to be feedback from every single interviewer they did on their on-site interview. And then they'll say, they did really well in their coding, but they did bad in like their career talk. They did okay in their design, and they did really good in their machine learning, whatever it may be. And then those 3 hiring managers in that debrief will talk about it. But then another cool factor will come in is like, I know about like referrals. Everybody knows about connections. So like what we call champions is that a champion could come in, or like a referral could actually come into those debriefs and vouch for that candidate, saying like, oh, I worked at them with Pinterest. They were on my team at Pinterest. They were really good. They might have had a really bad problem-solving incident during that interview, but I know they're really good. And if that actually has helped, and I've actually seen that firsthand, where they say, we'll take your word for it, and we'll give them a follow-up interview. Well, they won't extend an offer, but they'll give them a second chance. And I've seen another one where they don't have that champion, and then they'll literally just throw it saying, we're not going to extend this offer. And then that's that.
Okay, thank you.
I think we have time for like one last question. We're a bit over the time, so if anyone wants to leave, that's okay as well. But we have time for one more.
I had one quick question. So you said that with contracts, or like you have a contract that expires after like 1 or 2 years. I was wondering, like, if you really like your job, would you be able to like reapply for the position and like continue that contract, or do you have to switch to something else?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. I actually forgot to touch on that more. So if you do want to get into tech, you're like, especially like out of college or 1 or 2 years out of college, unless you're a software engineer, you're essentially going to have to go through contract. I mean, unless you had like an internship, like States or something like that. Because I have a few friends and financial analysts at Facebook, and they're a contract as well. It's just very, very common to be contract. And my contract is 1 year. So if that 1 year comes up and they don't convert you, and when you get converted, it's not like you did well, I'm going to convert you full time. No, you're going to actually have to compete against you're competing for that full-time position and interviewing for it against your teammates, against people from, out externally. So it's all about, it's all about really kind of proving yourself, building those relationships and building those connections while you have that year. But yeah, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So you gotta go through the obstacles like everyone else.
When you say convert you, does that mean like going to a different position?
So when I say convert, so what they say from contract converting to full time. So contract I'm through an agency. So the agency is actually the one paying me. So I work at Facebook. I do everything for Facebook. I have Facebook everything. So Facebook pays that company, and the company takes a percentage, and then the company pays me. And then if I get converted, that means I'm going to be a full-time employee at Facebook. So Facebook's going to be paying me directly. I'm going to have stock options, and I'm going to get benefits from Facebook.
Okay, thank you.
Gabe, what was your favorite thing about EBSA?
I think that was the last question, Stacey. I think you're out of time.
No, I'm not.
I think my favorite thing about I always use this one because it is my favorite. So my favorite thing about EBSA was that when I first my first person I met was Stacey, because at the time she was a secretary, not her president. Yeah, I met her in her humble days. So she was a secretary greeting people at the door. And the second meeting we had, and I'm like a new transfer too at this time. Second meeting, she goes, "Hey, Gabe," when I walk in the door. And I think it was like one of the first times in Davis that I was actually going for a club, and I was like a new person who remembered my name. So it just really showed me like how far it could go to actually know someone's name. And you meet a lot of people in college. You're going to meet a lot of people in networking events, and you're going to meet a lot of people in your career. And how many times have you heard someone say, "Hey, I'm really bad with names. I'm sorry." It happens all the time. I think that's more of an excuse, because if you get really good at remembering people's names, honestly, like when people come up to you, it doesn't happen very often. When someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, Jacob," or "Hey, Sindura," like, and you're just like, "Shit, I don't know your name. Fuck." You know what I mean? Like, how often does that happen? But like, how does that make you feel though? You're like, holy, like they remembered my name. Like, why didn't I remember their name? And you're going to always remember their name after you ask that second time, because you're never going to forget it. So I think just knowing that simple skill is very powerful, especially in the workplace, because you're going to come across someone that you've like, is going to be like a friend of a friend. And they're going to be like, "Oh, here's my friend Jacob at happy hour, blah, blah, blah." And all of a sudden you're going to like run into him in the workplace, and then, "Hey, Jacob," like, and then you're friends with them. Right. And now you're like building a relationship. And then next thing you know, you interview for that manager position, and Jacob is, a friend of that interviewer. That's an extreme case, but it just goes to show you that's my favorite experience at EBSA because it just goes to show you like how important that simple skill is to really just remember someone's name and call them by their name instead of saying "Hey, dude," or "Hey, man."
I do want to cut in really quickly and say I think that's a really good tip. I remember you told me this when I first joined EBSA as a freshman, and I never forgot it, and I still do it to this day. And how much of a difference like remembering someone's name after one interaction can really like form a really strong relationship. So I think that's really valuable to take.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, thanks, Sonia. And to like piggyback even off that, it's so hard to remember an interviewer's name during an interview. Like, you're nervous, and everything is just going on so fast. And I've even happened to me. I forgot their names at the end, and I said "thank you," and I just walked away. Right? But it's something like you learn over time. And if you really learn that skill, and if you give that firm handshake and say "thank you, Stacy," it's just something that a lot of people don't do. And I think it's overlooked, but sometimes it's such a simple skill. To kind of take that to heart.
I had the same experience when I first joined EBSA, and Stacy is president, and she remembered my name, and I was, wow, this is such a cool club. And I've been in it for 3 years now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You hear it all the time, especially in college, like in like unprofessional environments. They're always like, "Oh, hey, man," like, "Hey, dude." But honestly, I never knew their name. I said that a lot. I'm guilty of it. I'm sure a lot of you are. So yeah.
well, thank you so much. Thanks for everyone who came. I really learned a lot. I felt like this was really insightful. I really liked your interviewing tip about like the why Facebook question. But yeah, that's the end of the event. People can stay around to chat if they want for like the next 5 to 10 minutes, but I'm going to end the recording now.